There was something about the way the sun dipped beneath the horizon that evening, casting long shadows on the cracked pavement, that made me wonder if I was doing enough. Enough for my kids. Enough to prove I wasn't just another statistic. Another father who promised the world and delivered only dreams too big for the brokenness we lived in. The question lingered in the back of my mind like a faint echo of guilt, but I couldn't shake it. Maybe because, deep down, I feared the answer. If you've ever wondered what it's like to feel the weight of every failure and still push forward, then keep watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you believe in second chances, in family, and in the quiet battles that often go unnoticed. My life had turned into a balancing act I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep up with. It was the same routine every day, waking up before the sun, packing the kids' lunches, sending them off to school, then heading straight to the diner for my shift. Evenings were spent catching up on paperwork, maybe fitting in a few hours of sleep before the whole thing started again. And all of it was for them. For Ben and Lucy. My heart ached whenever I thought about them. They deserved so much more than this. But somehow, here I was, stuck in a cycle I couldn't break. Not for lack of trying, mind you. I had tried everything I could think of. Extra shifts at the diner, selling stuff I didn't need, cutting corners just to scrape by. It wasn't enough. Not even close. I had one dream, just one, to take them on a vacation. I wanted them to experience something different, something beyond the dull and harsh reality of our lives. But I knew that wouldn't happen. I could barely afford rent, let alone a plane ticket or hotel fees. Ben and Lucy's friends went on vacations to places I could only look at in the brochures: Disneyland, the beach, the mountains. It was a reminder every time they came back to school with tales of exotic destinations, of adventures I couldn't afford to give them. But that morning, as we sat at the kitchen table with cold cereal in front of us, I couldn't help but notice the tension in Ben's eyes. His friends had been mocking him again for not going on a family trip. The words were meant to sting, and they did. I tried to brush it off. Not everyone can afford a vacation, buddy, I said, but Ben didn't look convinced. Lucy, always the quiet one, simply stared at her cereal like it was the most interesting thing in the world. Her little hands twisted a spoon like it was the only thing that could hold her together. I couldn't stand the silence. The unspoken hurt. So I said what I had never dared say before. We're going on a vacation. All right. Their eyes widened, disbelief mixing with excitement. I wasn't sure how it would happen, but I was going to make it work. I didn't care if it meant selling my last possession or taking up another job. They were going to see something beyond the four walls of this apartment, beyond the small town where they'd grown up. I had no idea how I'd do it, but I couldn't bear to see their disappointment any longer. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The weight of the promise hung heavy on my chest, and I could feel the world pressing in on me from all sides. How was I going to pull this off? Where would I find the money? The fear of failure gnawed at me, but something else, something stronger, pushed me forward. Maybe it was the hope I saw in their eyes. Maybe it was the desperation in my own heart. Whatever it was, I knew that this trip, no matter how small or modest, was going to be the turning point. It had to be. It wasn't just about the vacation. It was about showing them that we were more than the sum of our struggles. I needed them to know that no matter how broke we were, no matter how many times life knocked us down, we could still rise. I was determined to make this trip happen. For them, for me, for us. The next morning, I began looking for deals, cutting corners where I could, putting in hours wherever I could find them. The plan began to take shape, though I knew it wasn't going to be easy. And the closer I got to making it real, the more doubts crept in. What if they didn't appreciate it? What if the trip wasn't enough to make up for everything I couldn't give them? I pushed those thoughts away. I had to. What I didn't know was that this trip, this simple, desperate promise I had made, would lead us into a series of events I couldn't have foreseen. Events that would test not only our limits, but the very foundation of what family meant. As I made preparations, as I saved every penny, little did I know that life had a different kind of adventure in store for us. And it would take all of us on a journey we'd never forget. I won't lie, there were moments when I thought about giving up, but I couldn't. Not when Ben asked me every night, "When do we leave, Dad?" Not when Lucy gave me that hopeful smile, her excitement impossible to fake. No, I had to keep going, even if I was running on fumes. I worked through every possible angle, finding discounts, swapping favors with friends who owned vans, even convincing my old boss at the diner to let me take a few extra shifts. Every penny counted, and every minute felt like it slipped away faster than I could catch it. The plan was simple. We drive. No flights, no expensive hotels, just us in the old van I'd inherited from my uncle. A beat-up, rusting thing that had seen better days, but it was all I had. It wasn't a luxury car, but it would get us to a beautiful national park 3 hours away. A place with waterfalls, trails, and wide open spaces. I could already imagine the look on Ben's face when we finally got there. For me, it wasn't just about the vacation. It was about showing my kids that adventure doesn't have to come with a hefty price tag. It's about the memories we make along the way, even when life doesn't give us the money to afford those luxury vacations we all dreamed of. On the morning we were supposed to leave, I found myself staring at the packed van, a jumble of mismatched bags, blankets, and snacks I'd stocked up on from discount stores. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. Ben was bouncing with excitement, Lucy quieter as always, but I could see the spark in her eyes. This was real. We were doing it. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I was disappointing them. I felt like I was giving them something that they could carry with them, something more than material things. The world could take all our money, but it couldn't take our memories. But just as I was about to close the van's door, my phone rang. It was my sister, Julie. Her voice was tight when she spoke. "Marcus, I know you're trying to do something special for the kids, but you don't have to go all out. You're barely keeping it together, and I interrupted her, trying to keep my frustration in check. "Julie, I've got this. We're going. Don't worry about me. We're leaving now. I'm making it happen." She sighed on the other end, her concern evident. I know. I just hate seeing you stretch yourself so thin. Don't do something reckless, okay?" I could hear her hesitation, but I couldn't back down. I wasn't just doing this for them. I was doing it for me too. Julie meant well, but she didn't understand. I couldn't bear the thought of telling Ben and Lucy, "Sorry, maybe next time." I had to show them that things could get better, even if it was just for a weekend. I hung up, shaking off the feeling of guilt that gnawed at me. Ben was already in the front seat, fiddling with the radio, while Lucy buckled her seatbelt. They were ready. They believed in me. The drive started out as you'd expect, quiet, tense. The old van rattled and groaned as we hit the highway, and the air was thick with the unspoken weight of our situation. I could tell Ben was waiting for the moment when something would go wrong, just like it always did. He was cautious, too aware of our struggles. But Lucy didn't know any better. She still had that innocent belief that everything would be fine if we just stuck together. It made my chest tighten every time I looked at her. She deserved better than the scraps life had handed us. After about an hour, we stopped for lunch at a small diner in a forgotten corner of the state. The place was cheap, but the food was good, and more importantly, it had that sense of old-time comfort, just what we needed to refuel for the journey ahead. While Ben and Lucy devoured their meals, I sat back, feeling a wave of exhaustion wash over me. I hadn't realized how much I was holding in until that moment. The weight of trying to be everything for them. It was harder than I expected. Ben caught my eye as I stared down at my half-eaten sandwich. He must have sensed the shift in my mood, the way my shoulders were a little too tense. He leaned in, his voice quieter than usual. "Dad, we're really doing this, right? It's gonna be great, isn't it?" It was a simple question, but it stopped me in my tracks. For a moment, I didn't know how to respond. My heart lurched in my chest as I looked at his hopeful face. "Yeah, kiddo, it's going to be great. I promise." The trip continued on, with the miles slowly falling away under the worn tires of the van. Ben and Lucy started to get restless, as kids do on long car rides. We played games, told stories, and for a few hours, we just enjoyed the simplicity of being together. The heavy weight that had been clinging to me seemed to lighten, bit by bit, with each passing mile. By the time we reached the park, it was almost sunset. The park was quiet, the crowds thinned out by the late hour, and it felt like we had stumbled upon a hidden gem. We pulled into a small campsite by a stream, the faint sound of water trickling nearby. I could see it in their faces, the wonder, the joy, just by being in a new place, away from everything else. And that made it all worth it. We set up camp together, laughing and bickering in that way families do. The cool evening air wrapped around us like a blanket as we huddled around the fire, making esmores and telling stories. The kids didn't care that we weren't staying at a fancy hotel or that the tent was too small for all three of us. They were just happy to be here. With me. With each other. I could see it then. This wasn't just a vacation. It was a moment. A reminder that we didn't need money, or luxury, or anything else to feel rich. We had everything we needed right here. And as I looked at their faces, glowing in the firelight, I realized something profound. This trip wasn't just about showing them that we could take a break from the grind. It was about showing them what mattered most. Family, love, the ability to find joy even in the simplest moments. I didn't know how long we could keep this up, how long I could keep up the charade that everything was okay. But at that moment, as the fire crackled and the stars slowly appeared above us, I knew one thing for sure. This was the beginning of something new for us. Something better. Something worth fighting for. The next morning, we woke to the sound of birds and the chill of dawn creeping through the cracks in our tent. Ben and Lucy, tired but happy, scrambled out to explore the campsite. I sat there, watching them with a deep sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't worried about bills or work or all the things I couldn't provide. The kids were alive with excitement, eager to hike the trails, see the waterfalls, and simply be in this moment. Later, we drove to the nearby lake. Ben took a dip, laughing as he splashed around, while Lucy sat on the bank, carefully collecting smooth rocks for a little pile she called her treasure. Watching them, I couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. This was enough. It wasn't about fancy hotels or expensive flights. It was about the time we spent together and the memories we were creating. But what struck me most was how their laughter, their joy, was a gift. One that I could never have bought with all the money in the world. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was doing something right. I wasn't perfect, I wasn't rich, but I was present. And maybe that was the greatest thing I could give them. We left the park a few days later, the kids asleep in the back as the van rumbled along the road, heading back home. They would return to school and their friends, but I knew they would remember this trip. Not just because it was special, but because it proved something bigger. That even when everything else falls apart, family is what holds it all together. And maybe, just maybe, that's all we ever really need.